Buenas noches, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, do please allow me to start off by thanking everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, and the love and support you guys extend my way. And also, if the message makes a little sense to you, do please like, share, and subscribe. Well, to get into what I want to touch on today, I've been asked numerous of times in the lives to touch on levels, how I see levels, how they function, the shoe situation, right? What kept me, at least I could only speak for me, right? Sane to some sense. And also, a lot of people ask me a lot about what a sherm, and I do want to touch on Sam status, which I will. As this is going up, there's a video going up on Miss Reactions Rob explaining so. But this is a little entry, you could say, to how the difference of levels, right? And as always, I'm gonna put it in a personal experience, But I want to take you back to Tehachapi, 2002, Tehachapi shoe to be exact, right? I was there, and as I said it before, I was supporting mainly Toro, right? But well, things would change as time goes by, as they always do, right? But nevertheless, while we're there up in C section, there's a vato that gets there for an assault on a jura. At least that's what the paperwork said. He was actually coming from a level 2, I believe in Sentinella if I'm not mistaken. And, at first nothing seemed wrong. And I remember he even got put up on the gallo and everything checked out, right? This is the vato Rocky, right? From Eastside Duarte. And with a little bit of time, another camarada drives in, right? From the same yard. And it's part of the issue that happened with the Jura, right? Which was the homie from La Puente, Bird, or Pajarito, or Bird, we'll just say Bird. And the minute he drove up, Rocky from Duarte ended up locking it up. And what we wanted to see what was wrong to the extent of, placing him on the lista. Well, at least not me, but you guys get it, right? The Billies and the homie Bird, he uh, he'll run everything down. Again, this is still the group yards, right? The concrete yards. So we were able to get out there and actually hear it, because the homie went out to yard, he started programming, doing his thing. Again, they're coming from a level 2, though. And as things unfolded, the reality of things is level 1s and 2s, everybody's going home. Nobody even wants to check paperwork. It's just, it's just facts, right? For one, if you check excuse me, and you run into something shady, you're requesting to see it, you're obligated to act. Nobody wants to mess their date up, right? So there is a lot of people that slide through the shadows, right? With dirty paperwork, or like in this case, with lies. You see, the vato Rocky from Duarte, supposedly he was in touch with Terco. When he had the blessings of the yard. Now he played it off good because he didn't let the whole yard know. He only let the vatos that were actually in the mix of doing something on the yard, right? Like hitting. And as the homie explained it to me, right? I never been in a level 2, so people on this yard, they were hitting, but they weren't selling. If I don't know if it makes sense. They were basically going out and hitting a gram or whatever for personal use. But when Rocket came into play, he basically wanted dope. So he started saying he was for Terco, and you see the avenues are blocked. It's real hard from a vato in a level 2 to be in contact at this time with the Pili, right? For one, you would have to put in work and go through a shoe to actually run across a Pili. Or be in a level 4 180 that's just lifers or in shoe kickouts. Everybody on 180 is in touch with somebody and they're nitpicking and politicking against each other. It's just what it is, right? And yes, there is active vatos telling on things happening on the yard in the 180, but not as much as level 2. For some reason they get paranoid when things start happening. Now with this, I'm not taking anything from doing time in level 2, right? Doing time is doing time regardless. I've actually seen with my own eyes how there is cases where level 2s go up, right? And homies hold it down regardless. But anyways, getting back to Rocky, for a whole year he was there, supposedly looking at the out for the jardín for Terco. I don't know how he would do it, but he would show fake amapils or kites, right? Supposedly with Terco orders, whatever. It's he reminds me of Jimmy from OC, right? That he had his mom write down my pills from the streets to play it off, right? But regardless, I guess again, I don't know the history from Eastside Duarte to La Puente, but they had a misunderstanding, right? Palabras. Attended lay level 1, 2 camp, whatever it may be. Man's a man. And disrespect should be dealt with. Especially you're busted for being a gangbanger. So of course, you don't want to be look weak or whatever, especially with people in your area that's gonna get out and believe me, they're gonna put it out. That you backpedal inside, to get out. But anyways, according to the homie Bird, right? Little Bird, let me clear that up. Pajarito. They got in an argument behind an appeal, right? Bird wasn't in agreement with it, but again, the lack of knowledge In reality, Bird shouldn't have spoken on the appeal. But the lack of reach, usually when you don't agree with an appeal, you go through your pipeline, right? Through the feeling, you request an explanation before you even press the issue. Because the last thing you want to do is step in the way of another Pili's directives. But anyways, again, the homie, he made his feelings heard, right? And Rocky ended up picking up offense. After a year, I could imagine homeboy, he had already pumped himself up real good, right? Felt real secure, I guess. And got to a point they went up, right? They knuckled up while they're chunking them. I guess a female seal, tried to stop him, and it's a no-no, right? For a seal to actually try to put hands on you while it's going up. Usually they stand back with their fire extinguisher or their pepper spray and they start gassing you, right? But it wasn't the case. I guess she tried to get involved a little bit more and she got flipped around and they would eventually go to the hole behind that as an assault on a CO and they would end up in the shoe. So they would end up in Tehachapi. And anyways, I got requested by Toro, since you could say I had a direct communication with Terco, right? To ask him what was up with Rocky from Eastside Duarte. Which I did, I shut down my appeal and well, it takes a while, right? You have to go through three ways to the point where it gets to Terco's people and wait for the visit, right? And it came back from T that Charles, he had never even met Homeboy or heard of him. And again, it was all maple leaf. But it's the type of things that happen in a level 2. Smart individuals get out. Maybe at one time did a term in a higher level. They scope things out. Get to the yard, they start scoping people out. The program, seeing where people's head is at. Most importantly, seeing where their reach is at. And then they make the play. Again, I don't think it was so much of for making feria, right? I think if people brought in a gram, a couple papers here and there for free, is the reason why Homeway was doing it. Again, things happened though, and things unfolded, and this would end up happening. At the end of the day, it's common in a level 1 and level 2 that there's people hiding in the shadows, working camaradas, and they skate through it, eventually go home, and you know, Homeboy would end up getting sentenced, and it got dropped. I forgot what it got dropped to, but he would end up going home. So of course, T sent Palabra on the streets that his name was used in vain, and Homeboy had to bounce. But here's the other kicker. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Nobody could run them makes. That wasn't even Homeboy's placazo. You know, he pulled one of them. He made up a placazo as he was there. Nobody was checking paperwork. Again, nobody wanted that responsibility. Eventually, they would pinpoint who he was, right? And it wasn't Rocky. Raton from Eastside Duarte. That was his placazo. And they would attempt on him, right? But Homeboy ended up taking off. Not before, getting hit, going to the hospital, and telling. And it's not much easier to tell. That's why you're seeing that integration right now on a level 1 and 2s. Again, because everybody's going home. You have all these guys that are no good that hit the yard. And basically, the guys that are good might be telling his people he's in a different spot. He might be there with a different name. Again, there's no makes being run from there because of the lack of. So they decide to stay and program with them. You know, the homie Little Bird, he would end up being a good camarada, a good primo for Toro. It's a shame to say though, when you once you become tied to a pili, you get on the streets, you have a gang of responsibilities, you're gonna come back. And of course you're gonna come back with something serious. It ain't gonna be, you know, then low level points. Again, the biggest difference is 180 is just different like that in the sense of there is carnalismo, right? I'll just be sincere, at least from the teeth out. There's no more neighborhood areas. A camarada drives up, a camarada drove up, hey homie, ¿qué necesitas? Todo, it's different. Now, I'm not saying there ain't funny stuff, because, there's funny stuff in the shoe, or was, as I will touch on it with the rundown on levels, right? And how a certain Pili was discovered feeding information. It happens in any level. But again, I will touch on the 6 levels on misreactions raw. Please stop in for it. I want to try to be as clear as possible, right? At least to my experience, as well as what Sam Standards really stands for, right? And it is why people believe Sherm on this regard. But anyways, that's all prison is, betrayals. Remember, it's prison. Everything's a lie. You would eventually get stuck. So push for those that deserve you to push. Might be your home was for your neighborhood. Because I understand a lot of us join the gang because of the lack of family. But always stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved ones.